All right, guys, in this last video for Chapter 9 on water and minerals, I wanted to focus on this group called trace minerals. We mentioned before that trace minerals are required minerals that our body uses for different types of reactions. We'll see some examples of these, but you only need these in a very small amount, approximately 100 milligrams or less per day. And so we'll look at some of these as examples. You may be familiar with iron as needed in our bloodstream. Iron is needed for these protein molecules called hemoglobin and myoglobin. You may have heard of hemoglobin before. This is what is inside of our red blood cells. That's what the RBC stands for here. That's inside of our red blood cells. It has in the middle of that protein iron. And, if you know anything about iron metal, you know that if you allow it to come in contact with oxygen or moisture, it will rust. And so, in other words, iron has a natural attraction or an affinity for the oxygen atom or molecule. And so that's what it does. It's part of this hemoglobin protein, and it helps to bind to oxygen. That allows oxygen to be transported through the circulatory system out to the tissues where the tissues are going to use it for cell respiration. It does have some ability to transport carbon dioxide as well, but you also have other ways to transport carbon dioxide, including kind of turning that into an ion type form and transporting it that way. So that's hemoglobin. Myoglobin is very similar. It's still a protein. It still has the iron element there that's part of that protein, and it still binds to oxygen. You find myoglobin if you know this prefix myo refers to muscle, and so you find this version or this specific type of hemoglobin called myoglobin found in muscle cells. And that's because muscles need a lot of oxygen. This particular type of myoglobin helps to bind oxygen even stronger. So it has a very great affinity for oxygen, and it helps the muscle cells have enough oxygen to go through those metabolic reactions, cell respiration, turning the glucose energy into the ATP energy that it needs that requires a lot of oxygen there. So iron is needed mainly for transporting oxygen through the red blood cells. You may have heard of some iron deficiency disorders. You may have heard of something called anemia. We'll talk briefly about some of these things. Generally, your body doesn't store a lot of iron. There are some places in the body, such as the liver, that can store some. You do have some free iron, but whenever your reserves are getting low, then you may have a deficiency in iron. It can interfere with growth. It can interfere with other things such as behavior, immune reaction, cardiac function, energy metabolism. All of these things really go back to, how, if you don't have enough iron, you may not be producing enough hemoglobin. You may not be transporting enough oxygen throughout the system. So that, would decrease growth. That may decrease cardiac function, metabolism, all of these energy type things, because your body's not getting enough oxygen delivery out to the tissues. And so according to your textbook here, our area of the world, and really just about every place, iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency that individuals suffer from. And that's because there's different types of anemia that can cause some problems with having iron, not getting enough protein, not getting enough sources of iron. Good, healthy sources of iron can lead to some type of iron deficiency. If it's anemia, there could be several different causes. It could be that the red blood cells don't have that iron and they're not making enough hemoglobin. It's not being produced enough. Or maybe there's a problem with the red blood cell. Maybe the red blood cells or the stem cells that are producing the red blood cells, maybe there's a problem there. So there's different forms of anemia out there that can cause a decrease in oxygen transport through the body. The second one we'll look at is zinc. And you'll see here that this is needed for many different enzymes in the body. Enzymes are proteins. Enzymes help to speed up different types of chemical reactions in the body. You can see a whole list of different places that these enzymes are being used for that require zinc as part of that. So wound healing, if you have cuts, bruises, different wounds that you've got to have some enzymes there to heal that wound. You've got to have the collagen and the protein fibers there to fix the problem. That kind of goes with the healthy skin as well. Any kind of growth is going to be requiring enzymes, so therefore it's going to require zinc. Zinc is also needed for certain things like the sense of taste and smell. It's needed for DNA synthesis. And again, it kind of goes back to some of the enzymes required to go through these processes require this mineral. And again, it's just a small amount, but it's needed to kind of get that enzyme activated. So it's working as a cofactor or a helper to that enzyme. Copper, again, you don't need very much of, but you do need a small amount of copper. One of the things that it helps with is the production of enzymes that help with our antioxidants. We talked about antioxidants before. Those are those molecules that help to supply those free radicals with extra electrons and try to stabilize those. So that's very important for our overall general health. It's helpful for our DNA. It's helpful for our cell membranes. And so copper is needed to make sure that we have enough of the antioxidants being produced. There's some other physiological functions that copper is involved in. It helps with iron metabolism, your immune system functioning, and collagen. Collagen is needed. That's a type of protein, and that's found in your connective tissues. So you need collagen there. That's part of your bone. It's part of your skin. It's part of just about every organ that you have. And anytime these things go through any kind of repair or wound healing, whether it's your skin or your bones, you're going to have collagen there to be replaced. And so copper is needed for some of that as well. Another trace mineral that you may have heard of is iodine. Iodine, the main place that you see this used for is your thyroid gland function. Your thyroid gland produces some metabolic hormones. They're usually abbreviated T3 and T4. And those metabolic hormones actually have iodine as part of the molecule there. And so part of the compound. And so that's needed there. If you don't have enough iodine in your diet, I'll come back to this slide in just a second, but if you don't have enough iodine in your diet, it's very rare, at least in the US. You can see it in other places around the world, but it causes the thyroid gland to enlarge. It's like the thyroid gland tries to grow larger to try to overcompensate for the lack of iodine by trying to produce more of the T3 and T4. And that's called a goiter. And you can kind of see in the image there that large swelling in the neck area is actually the thyroid gland that has grown or gotten enlarged. And because the T3 and T4 is not really being produced at the adequate, sufficient rate, those are metabolic hormones. So your metabolism starts to go down. You feel very fatigued. You may experience weight gain. And so, those are very common symptoms of iodine deficiency. One of the things that the U.S. has done, and I don't know when this was implemented, but they started putting iodine or a form of iodide, in table salt. That's something that we eat on a routine basis. We talked about sodium before, but table salt has many table salt manufacturers include this. Next time you do your grocery shopping, look in the aisle that has the seasonings. Look at the salt and look to see if it says iodinized. And sometimes you can buy salt that doesn't have iodine added to it, but the iodine is added for this reason, so that we have enough iodine in our diet to prevent any kind of deficiency. You can find iodine naturally. It's usually found in like shellfish and some seafood. But just to make sure everybody gets the proper amount of iodine, you can find it in salt. Fluoride. This is a trace mineral. Technically, it's not. It is believed not to be required by the body, although there are some studies that show that it does help in certain areas. We see it mostly when we think about our teeth, and that's because that this ion or this mineral helps to literally strengthen the enamel and the bone matrix in our teeth and in our bones. There is a condition called fluorosis, and that's the picture here. And you can see the kind of the staining there of the teeth if you have too much fluoride. And so sometimes you see that, some county districts will add fluorine or fluoride to the water. You may have fluoride in different products, dental products and things. And so if you're overusing fluoride as a dental treatment, it could potentially stain teeth. You sometimes see this in adolescents and younger kids here. Two more that we'll look at in this list is selenium and chromium. You don't hear much about these. Selenium is needed in producing certain proteins in the body, and those proteins can help again to help with antioxidant activity. There's been some research that suggests that that selenium can actually reduce the risk of some types of cancers, but there's not a lot of research out there on this. Sometimes you see both of these, selenium and chromium, in like a multivitamin or inside of some of the supplements. Chromium, there's been some recent studies on chromium that suggest that it actually helps in lowering your blood glucose levels. And so there's been some studies that suggest this is actually helpful, that it actually helps the insulin, the normal hormone that's doing this, is actually helping to allow glucose from the blood to get into the cells a little easier, so that chromium may be used in that way. So some health individuals, suggest taking chromium as a dietary supplement. The last one here we'll look at is manganese. And again, this is one that you don't see much about. It again is a cofactor activator of different enzymes. And so those enzymes play a role in different types of metabolic type reactions, biochemical type reactions, metabolism, wound healing, even things like bone formation and cartilage formation require certain enzymes, and those enzymes need some type of cofactor to activate those enzymes to get them to work. Even some antioxidant function as well. And so a lot of these trace minerals have some overlap in some of their use in the body. Good places to find manganese is some of those green leafy vegetables, and even some nuts and whole grains as well.